Okay, it's 5 after and I don't want to keep you guys too long, so we'll go ahead and get started and hopefully the others will join us shortly. Today's training is on event planning and really thinking through how can you plan a seamless event. We're going to do really 3 things while we talk today. The first one is, think about what kind of events are you going to plan this year during your service. Then we're going to talk about, what does it mean to really have a COVID safe event? What are some strategies that you can do to make sure your event's safe for everyone participating? And what would it look different like? And then the last thing is we're really going to think through planning an event. So you'll pick one event that you're going to be working on and we'll go through 10 steps to really start planning that event. So let's start by talking about what type of event you're going to plan this year. Really, there's a wide variety of types of events you might be working on. So anything from a community event to a networking session, or is it a training or a seminar that you're providing, or your service project? Is it really your spring service project? If you don't have any specific events that you are planning this year, you can think through your spring service project. So let's use the chat feature, and can everybody just send in what kinds of events you're going to be planning this year? So Michelle's doing a community event, service projects, several people. Then somebody's doing a tie-dye mask event. That's fun. Lots of service projects. Okay, great. Well, the tips that we're going to talk about today can really be used for any of these types of events. We'll really talk about, what are some of the best practices for planning. We're going to move into thinking about COVID events and really how can you make your event safe during COVID. I really feel like there are 3 main types of events that can be COVID safe. So in-person events, virtual events, or a hybrid event. And we'll talk about each of these and really what that could look like. First, for an in-person event, how do you make that type of event still safe during COVID? The first thing I would think about is, can you hold your event outside? And is there a large outdoor space to use? If you have to have your event inside, you want a really large space, so a conference room or something that's large so that people can spread out and have 6 feet around them. Or you could do multiple shifts of smaller groups of participants. So maybe you have 50 people who are going to be at your event, but you have them come in groups of 10, and you do that same session 5 times. It's also important to think about pre-registration, so you can think through, what do I need to do to make sure everybody who attends is safe and I'm prepared for that. So when you think about event registration, I think often a lot of times for events, people traditionally used to use like email registrations or phone calls, things like that. I think event software are a lot easier on the person managing the event. So a couple of the key or main softwares I've used is Zoom, which has a built-in registration for webinars, or Eventbrite when I've planned in-person events. Eventbrite's nice because you can allow participants to pick which sessions they want to attend, pay for their event, get reminders, things like that. Are there any other software that anyone in the group have found to be very helpful? Go ahead and put it in the chat if there are. Also, I think it's important to think about payments. So if your event is not free and you're charging people to attend, you'll want a safe way to take those payments. So several of the key systems out there are PayPal, Venmo, or Facebook Pay. Both PayPal and Venmo have card swipe ability so that you could take take payment right there while you're doing it, or you can have people pay online ahead of time. If anybody has any suggestions on either registration or payment methods they've used, put those in the chat so people can know of them. Then let's move to a virtual event. And I would say most events recently have been virtual. And so what are some of those best practices you need to consider when holding a virtual event? I would say probably the most important one is to think about a way that people are going to be able to be fully engaged and not lose interest. So often they say to limit your event to 60 to 90 minutes so that people can stay engaged and be interested in what's going on. Provide breaks. Do they need time to refresh and reset their brains? Also make it an easy to use software so that people don't have trouble getting on. I know that at this point in the pandemic, that's not as much of a problem as it was at the beginning, but I think it is still important. And provide technical assistance to people who have those issues. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most important, is to make the event interactive. How can you make the event something that that person is actively engaged in and they're not just sitting and listening? So we talked about software, and there's a lot of things out there, but I would say the 4 common or webinar software that people have been using lately are Facebook Messenger Rooms, which is a room that you can send out a link and all of the people can join. Google has 2 options. So Google Meet, which is their webinar software that has recording and chat features. And then there's also Google Classroom, which is a free collaborative application where it's similar to a learning management system where you can post and people can have different activities and things they complete. Microsoft Teams that provides chat, meet, call, and collaborative software all enrolled into one. And then I would say the last one, which is probably most commonly used, is Zoom. And Zoom provides free 40-minute webinar software for everyone. And then also Zoom Schools lists that 40-minute requirement. So maybe your school has a Zoom Schools account that they could let you use. So if anybody has any other great softwares out there, let us know and put it in the chat. So I would say that it's very important to make your event interactive. How can the person be, engaged and fully interested in what you're talking about? So I have a list of interactive software, but there are tons of things out there. So I'm sure you've heard of something. So put it in the chat and tell us about it. But some of the things that Jody and I came up with are, just Zoom polls, which I know we've all done that in the past, and it's a pretty easy feature. And software like Kahoot, Booklet, and Book Widgets. So I know you guys have all done Kahoot with us before, and it's basically a way to use a trivia type game for review purposes. So all 3 of those are similar, but have some different features within them. Flipgrid allows you to have discussions by video. So people are basically posting videos to add to a discussion. So it's even something you could use not during the event, but maybe as a follow-up to capture ideas later. Poll Everywhere allows you to get feedback instantaneously during your event. So maybe you're asking a question and you want the answer to be up on the screen, or you want to gauge people's interest or things like that. You can use Poll Everywhere. The picker wheel allows you to make a random decision with a colorful wheel that shows them right there, what's being picked. So maybe you have 10 people who are going to get a prize and you show the wheel and it tells you, who gets that prize. Bingo is it's a virtual bingo game where each person gets a card and they can play bingo. Ruskin Creative has a variety of templates of game show type games like Family Feud that are a lot of fun. Jackbox is a quiz-based video game. And then the last one we thought of was Paint and Sip, where you could have, you know, an art type event where it's more of engaging with people. And there's examples of that you can use on YouTube as a tutorial. So if anybody has any other ideas, put them in the chat, but I think there's a lot of really great things out there to still make a webinar fun and something that people are interested in. The last type of event is a hybrid event, and it's really combining those two ideas. So using both in-person and virtual at the same time. So there's some different ways to do this. The first one is to let participants choose whether or not they attend in person or participate online. So maybe, you know, you have half of the people there in the room, but everybody else is joining virtually. You could also use a drive-through method for people to pick up materials. So maybe you're going to play a game during your event and you want everyone to pick up those materials. They could do it ahead of time. You could also mail those materials to participants. Some other things to consider are recording the event for later viewing or live streaming it. So maybe you have half of the participants there, but you want everyone else to be able to watch the video. So some great live streaming softwares are Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So those are some of the strategies for COVID safe events that I came up with. If anyone has any other ideas or things that they've done, please put them in the chat so that we can share them with everyone. Okay, we are going to move on to planning an event. So we're going to walk through 10 steps for planning your event. And then while we do that, we're going to put you into groups to really talk about, you know, what would my event look like and start doing some planning. I'm putting in the chat our handout for you to open. And so we will break out into groups to discuss this handout as we go through these 10 steps. So the 10 planning steps for events include developing your event goals and objective, organizing your team, establishing a budget, setting the date, creating a master plan, booking your venue, branding your event, establishing partnerships and sponsorships, creating a publicity plan, and then what are you going to do on the day of? And so we'll walk through each of these and discuss some key strategies. So the first step is to develop your event goals and objectives. Any event or every event should have some key goals and objectives that are tangible and achievable. You're going to want to start by asking yourself some questions. You know, why are you planning this event and what do you hope to achieve? Who are you targeting? You know, who do you want to participate and how many attendees do you expect? You know, is it just 50 people or is it 500? And then how does this event align with our organization goals and the bigger picture? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to gain new volunteers, conduct a training, or teach someone a new skill? Increase or boost participation in something, raise awareness, drive people to sign up to do something, or inspire someone to get involved. You're also going to want to think through what's your content. You know, what do you want people to take away from this event and to really understand? And then as you think through your goals, you can ensure that each piece of your event is really planned accordingly and will be helpful in the success of what you do. it's very important to set your goals ahead of time and as a team so that everyone understands what's going on. Step number 2 is organizing your team. Every event really takes a team to plan it. So whether it's you and one other person or a large team of people, you're going to have to work with others to really make sure that it's a successful event. So some ways that you may use other people to organize an event are to, somebody to organize staff, entertainment, publicity, speakers, sponsors, venue, volunteer management. It's important to really assign these roles up front so people have time and the ability to really plan well, and also they know what they're responsible for. So we're going to give you 8 minutes to break into a group of 3 to discuss your event and talk about steps 1 and 2. You should answer questions 1 and 2 in your handout in your group. So I'll go ahead and break everyone out. It looks like everyone's back. I hope you guys had some good discussions. Would a couple people be willing to share what you discussed? So what are your goals and objectives and who's on your team? Somebody be willing to discuss? Okay, go ahead, Sierra.
So we discussed that, both of our projects are the West Virginia Coat for Kids, and that's what we've really been focusing on lately. And we really wanted to do this, like it's a really good project just to give back and meet the needs of the community that you see so often. And we hope to achieve these. I hope to achieve these needs, and our target is obviously the children in the school systems and even the siblings, maybe if like you had those donations that were different sizes or whatever. And then the people on our team have been, especially like in our county or our district that we're in, is the other Ed Alliance in each school system, is so that you're reaching all ages and all grades and not just your school specifically.
Great, thanks for sharing, Tiara. Would one other person be willing to share? Go ahead, Karen.
We had the same thing. We just decided to do the Coats for Kids since we're all working on that and it's fresh to us right now. It would be a service project community event. We would obviously be targeting the children that we work with in our schools, and if we had enough for the siblings. The way our takeaway from that would be the involvement and support within our community, interacting with everyone, and then also the joy from the kids when they receive the items, I think would be the big thing for me personally. And how to measure our goals. We thought maybe twice a week. So maybe Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, like a bi-weekly thing, just to kind of see if we're on that. And then we also obviously have to have our own 10 personal items, which some of us have already met that, but the overall to measure that way. And then our team, we came up with would probably be our site supervisor, keep them informed, our school principal. And then I had also mentioned like our AmeriCorps county teams when we break out, like whoever's in our county groups, just to kind of touch base with them and see if we're all on the same track.
Great, thank you very much for sharing. Okay, let's move on to step number 3, which is establishing your budget. We know that there isn't necessarily funding for all events, so you may have a very shoestring budget, or you may be planning an event that has a larger budget to it. But there are some key things that you want to consider for funding, or you want to look for sponsorship or somebody to donate these things for free. The first thing is your venue. Often venues will have a cost associated with them, but you may be able to get it donated. But you also need to think about insurance. Is there appropriate insurance to cover the people who are participating? Any in-person event is always better with food and drinks. So you will want to, spend some money or get some donations of that. Entertainment. How can you make this something that's fun? Is there a specific speaker that you can have involved, or a DJ, or a way for, something else to do? And also, you could use the same types of entertainment if you're doing a virtual or a hybrid event. I was actually on a meeting not too long ago that had a DJ, and it was a lot of fun. So think about those different things that you do in person that you could do virtually as well. Decor, are you going to do something to spice up the area that you're using? Or if it's a virtual event, how are you going to brand the PowerPoint or what you're doing to kind of showcase your event? Staffing, is it more than just you? Do you need volunteers to help? Do you have certain activities that require a staff member? So for example, if you had alcohol at an event, you would probably want a bartender so that you're not taking on that liability. Marketing, how are you promoting this event? And what are you doing really to reach your audience? Audio, video, and so this can be both for an in-person event or a virtual event. So it's anything from Wi-Fi to speakers. If you're having a virtual event, you also have to consider if you have a video, are the people who are participating able to hear that? And then anything miscellaneous, there are often a lot of little costs that come up. For example, I've heard a lot of people talk about with the Coach for Kids drive, a donation bin. Where can you get that from? Can you get it donated? So thinking through all of those costs. Step number 4 is setting your date. If it's an annual event or in recognition of something like MLK Day, that date might already be set for you. But if it's not, you're going to want to think through some key things to make sure your event's on a date that isn't conflicting with others. If you're having an in-person event, you're going to probably want to give yourself 4 to 6 months to plan that event to make sure that it's really, well thought out. If it's a virtual event, you want to at least give people a month to plan to be there. You want to avoid dates that, somebody might be doing something on that same day. So avoid holidays, school breaks, and also check with key people that you want to participate beforehand before you set that date. So are there speakers or presenters or VIP guests that you want to be there? You're going to want to check those dates ahead of time. Once you've set a date, you can go ahead and start booking things and start planning. Okay, so we'll give you guys another 5 minutes to talk about your event, and you're going to discuss questions 3 and 4 on your planning worksheet. So I'm going to break you back out into your groups and you can have a discussion. Okay, I think everyone's back. I hope you guys had a good discussion, and I'd like to hear a little bit about it. Would somebody be willing to talk about how you're establishing your budget and maybe how you're getting some of those costs paid for, and about setting the date? Would somebody volunteer? I can call in someone. Go ahead, Karen.
All right. We just kind of went off of what you reviewed. The January 18th to the February 1st, we're going to run the event, steer clear of holidays, close school days. For our budget, we just kind of put some things down. We have stuff around our homes that we might be able to use, but decor, material to decorate our bins or the area that we're going to set it up, maybe $5.
Okay.
Just to kind of throw numbers in. Marketing, if we would have to print flyers, if the schools couldn't print them, If we needed to buy bins, if we couldn't get boxes donated or anything, maybe $15, just to put something in there. Marketing on the free side, we social media, list on the school's website, not just if they have a Facebook page, but also list like on our social media pages. If they have a PTA or PTO, PTC at their school, see if we could list it on their sites as well.
Great. Thanks, Karen. Would one more person be willing to share?
I think that something else that we discussed was about the set the date, not only to avoid holidays, but also big events that the children or the students would want to be involved in, like a big basketball game on that Friday night or something like that. Like, that's things that you wouldn't always consider, but I think it's really important to consider, just because these kids, if there's a big rival game or something, they're not going to want to be a part of anything else. They want to feel part of the community while they do that. So we think it's really important to avoid those dates, and even the days after, because they're going to be late and their parents are going to be out late that night. So, that next Saturday maybe isn't the best date to have an event. So just stuff like that as well.
That's a great point. I also wanted to point out that maybe you change your event to coincide with that event. So say you have a big game on Friday night, maybe part of the entry is you get money off your ticket if you bring a coat or, donate.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would be a really good idea.
Yeah, great examples. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so we will move on to step number 5, which is creating your event master plan. So once you've thought through your costs and your timeline, it's important to start making a plan. You're going to want to create a master plan that allows you to think through every aspect of your event before it happens, so that you can stay on track and also make it easier for you to coordinate. So some important things to include in your master plan are the venue, logistics, and catering. So what contracts do you need, permits, insurance? What do you need to have happen for those things to be in place? Speakers and presenters. You're going to want to identify those persons, confirm them, discuss logistics and management of how that works. Activities and entertainment. What do you need to have in place to do those things? Publicity and promotion. Think both online and offline. So how can you post this in your local community, whether it's putting up flyers around town or posting it on a community board? A good example that came up recently was also think about businesses in your community that would help promote, whether it's having the pizza company put a flyer on top of their pizza box, or asking a business to put a flyer in the bag when someone purchases something. Also think about online promotion. So do you want to have a website? Are you using email marketing? What else are you doing? Are there community calendars you can put it on, whether it's either in person or online? Are you going to need a printed program? What about media? Are you going to ask a news reporter to cover it or need to send out a press release? Do you need signage or social media? Then the next thing is registration, and we talked about several registration systems earlier. It's important to think about online sign up, payment, tracking whether people attend, and then also the day of, you're going to want to have somebody either sign up or check them off a list to know that they're there. Sponsors and partners. Who are you going to ask to really help you with this, and whether it's paying for or managing your event? And then also volunteer management and responsibility. So if you're engaging other volunteers, what are they going to do? While planning your event, you're going to want to create a detailed timeline that allows everything to move smoothly. You want to include all of the steps that you have to do, whether it's getting a permit or insurance to, putting out your box for donations. It might be tempting to say everything will go smoothly and it's fine, but you really want to write these things down. It will both help you be efficient and successful, but also if your organization does the same event next year, it will be, detailed for the person that's working on the event. Moving on to step number 6 is booking your venue. So once you have your date nailed down, you're going to want to book your venue as soon as possible because they are booked well in advance. You're going to want to have a date and location nailed down before you can start promoting what you're doing. So some things to consider when you're booking your venue is accessibility. Is it easy for people to get there? Are there accessible entrances and elevators? Are there all gender washrooms or things that people can use? Will the space be interrupted by other people because they can come in and out as they wish? And is it a closed space that your participants feel comfortable in? The next thing is size. So when you think about, how many people are going to be in your event, is it 50 people to 500? You're going to want to have a venue that's appropriate for that, and also consider those COVID strategies we talked about earlier for in-person events. Parking, is there plenty of parking for people to attend? And is there insurance available, or is that something that you need to get for the event? AV, are there all the things you need from speakers to microphones available, or is that something you need to purchase from a third-party vendor? And then are there any costs you have to think about upfront, like deposits or additional fees that will be added later? Step number 7 is branding your event. So you're going to want your event to stand out, to be something that people think about, and it's timely and compelling to your theme. This means you need to come up with a dynamic overall theme and a great way to promote that. You're going to want to think about 3 things. How is your event different from other events in the sector? What are you hoping to convey in this event? And then what are the main components of your event? Once you do so, you're going to want to figure out what's the name for your event and make it catchy and something people think about. And then create a tagline. So you're going to want to craft something that's short and memorable that has the slogan for your event. And then the last thing is design a logo. So create some branding for your event that really points out what you're doing, and you can put this on all the things that you have for your event, whether it's the donation barrels for your coat drive, or if you're having a walk, putting that logo on water bottles to give to people. So we're going to break you out again into your groups so that you can discuss the next 3 questions. So you're going to be doing questions 6 through 8. So I'll give you 5 minutes to work on those questions now. I hope you guys had a good discussion. It looks like everyone's back. Would somebody be willing to share with us about your plan? And your brand and what you're doing. So would somebody be willing to share? Okay, I'll call on people if nobody wants to volunteer. Okay, how about Lacey? Will you share, please? Okay, I'm not sure if she's there. How about Kristen?
So my plan is to do cards for the nursing home, and since it's my first year, Jody's been like an amazing help. But she said that I could ask people from like Hallmark and ask them if they want to donate and stuff. But since I'm gonna do it with the classrooms, like my third grade classrooms. So I'm just gonna have them do it at recess because they can't go outside. And I thought it was a good idea because since people aren't allowed like to visit nursing homes, so it might be a good for them to get cards. But
Great, thanks for sharing, Lacey. I'm sorry, Kristen. Lacey said she can't use her mic and she's gonna share in the chat for everyone to read. Would somebody else be willing to share? So Alicia shared in the chat and she said that their location has drop-off bins at Omar Elementary, and Caitlin has is making drop off a bin for the location. Thanks for sharing, Alicia. Anybody else? Okay. So let's move on to step 8 and go through the last few steps. So step 8 is establishing partnerships and sponsors. So it's important to think about who can you partner with to reduce costs and increase the potential of your event. It's also a good way to get other people involved in the event and help them have buy-in on what you're doing. So some things you might want to consider are looking for corporate sponsors. So they could help pay for some of the costs of the event. So say you're having a dinner, maybe they would donate that dinner or prizes that you're having at your event. They could also personalize it or have a table to really display what they're doing or give participants something like a gift bag with material from their company. The second group you might want to think about partnering with are community organizations. They might be able to provide you with a free venue or assist in organizing or staffing your event. If you're looking for business or business sponsors for your event, keep in mind that they'll be more likely to do it if they can see a clear benefit for them on what you're doing. So you're going to want to think about past sponsors and then also think about new people you can reach out to work with. And be prepared to craft a compelling reason on why they should support you. And it's great to reach out to that business individually first and then see what they need. They might need you to write a grant or something to be able to get that sponsorship. Step 9 is creating a publicity plan. So it's really important to have a common look and feel throughout your material. You're going to want to do something to really promote what you're doing and get people in the door. You're going to want to be able to be noticed. So you may want to have a website, put it in the newspaper, send a save the date, or build an online or offline promotion plan. You're also going to want to think about media relations and how the media can help get people there. So some components you might want to look at are, web page announcements, social media, email blasts, press releases, and media advisories, and also local media connections. Printed material, and then a post-event thank you for sponsors or media acknowledging what they've done. I also think it's important to think about what are some of the resources out there that you can use to make your promotional material. Some of the ones that I use on a regular basis are Canva, which is a really easy design software to make flyers, social media things, anything like that, and there are free accounts available. Constant Contact or MailChimp to send out group emails that are have a nice design to them. Vimeo or Animoto to make interactive videos that people can watch and can promote your event up front. And then the last thing is to determine day of and follow-up procedures. So once you've prepared everything, you want to figure out a way to keep track of what you need to do that day. So you're going to want to almost figure out a schedule. So for example, at 5 a.m., you might be dropping off the silent auction things, and then at 6:15 having someone set up AV when your event doesn't even start until 8 o'clock. Then you're going to want to think through, you know, what time are the speakers coming on? What time are their breaks? Are there awards or something else? So what are the times of day that each of these things happen? So that is the last one of the 10 steps. So we'll give you 5 minutes to discuss, you know, working with partners and sponsors, creating your publicity plan, and then what do you want to do on the day of and after the event. So I'll break you guys into your groups. Okay, I think everybody's back. I hope your final discussion went well. Would a couple people be willing to share what you talked about? I will call on people. How about Jackie? Can you share?
Okay, so we talked about just the local, when we talk about sponsors, like the local community and getting them involved. As far as publicity for the event, because we're doing the service project, there's a lot already happening with that. Are the flyers, are the school newsletters that go out to the staff and to the parents, the different ones, letting them know of the event. The donation bins, having the flyers there, social media, just word of mouth. We're doing that. As far as the time frame, specifically for my locations, we have set days and times for when the donations can come in, because we are putting the donation bins right in the front doors. Like, you come in, but you don't need to be buzzed into the school, so that way it doesn't affect other people working. So we have specific times there, and then just working with for the follow-up process, like how to deliver, how do we get the things to, is working with the counselors and administrators to find out like who needs what, and then getting it to them, and maybe coordinating with people that can make home visits since they're not in the building to get it to them.
Great.
So that's what we talked about.
Thanks for sharing, Jackie. Would one other person share? Okay, how about Brooke? Brooke, will you share? Okay, maybe she can't use her microphone. How about Molly?
Molly's in my group and one other, and none of us have been able to share or discuss anything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've talked to myself a little bit.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Thanks for letting us know, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, so just to wrap up, so let's go back through what were those 10 steps we talked about. So developing your goals and objectives, organizing your team, establishing your budget, setting your date. Sorry, can't see the whole thing. Sorry. Creating your event master plan, booking your venue, branding your event, identifying partners and sponsors, creating a publicity plan, and then determining drop-off processes. So that concludes our discussion for today. Does anybody have any questions or things they want to share before we wrap up?
Emily,
Okay.
I'll add, and we just touched on this the last little bit of our breakout room. I told the folks in our breakout room that from my perspective, having been a mentor and now being associated with the Education Alliance, the Coats for Kids drive and the items that you have created and set up and the plan that is there is almost by definition the way you laid this seminar out. So I give you a lot of credit for that because it's very impressive, the materials that you sent everyone and everything that was created in order to make the drive successful. So have to give kudos to that. And then I would just add one thing. I may have sent you an email or a text yesterday or last night. Please try to get the spreadsheets squared away this week. We really need to get those all completed. A couple of you have like one item missing. Some of you have kids that aren't qualified but still on your list. And then some are still missing December's session data. So please try to get that done by the end of the week.
Thanks, Dale. A couple of final announcements before we end is that the last workshop in the AmeriCorps Bootcamp series will be next Thursday, and it is on marketing. And I really think it's going to be great. We have a professional who will be doing that, and I think he'll really have some good things to share with you. And then after that, the first Thursday of the month, we will have team meetings each month throughout the rest of your term. And on February 11th, we'll have the MLK Day celebration. So make sure to plan to attend those and put them on your calendar. And then the last thing I wanted to share is I got a lot of people in the chat saying that they couldn't get their microphone to work, and that's very understandable, but I think to make breakout rooms and things effective, it's great when you're able to talk. So there is a phone number that you can call in for audio. So if you can't get your computer audio to work, just plan to use that call-in number on your phone. It is in all the reminder emails, but we'll also make sure to post it on the first slide so that when you guys get in there, you have that number and are able to join. So thanks for your time today, guys, and I hope we've provided some good suggestions for you to plan your events.
Hey, Emily, I'm sorry, I have one more thing to add.
Go ahead.
The summit today is at 4 o'clock. There are multiple of you that don't have your second AmeriCorps learning community. So please try to sign up if you haven't signed up or get on that call. It's at 4 o'clock this evening. So thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we enjoyed spending time with you today.